Good evening. Welcome to Embrace Growth and Love Talk. I'm Gregory Morgan. I'm here today to talk to you about love and talk about the spiritual nature of love as opposed to the egocentric or the ego-based nature of love. You and I were not born with any instructions or any natural inclinations towards having long-term committed romantic relationships. It is an invention that came later on in life as people began to become more sophisticated and more complex. Then the notion or ideal, and I'm going to say the word ideal, like in idealize, we began to idealize something outside of ourselves, a man or a woman or another, and we began to create an idealization outside of ourselves and begin to adore or live or thrive on feeding the idealization of another human being. And so what we fell in love with was not really the other human being at all, but our idealization of this human being. And so the nature of romantic love was born. Now, I'm not saying that the idealization of another human being and romantic love is wrong or bad. I'm simply saying that for the most part, it doesn't work as a basis for a long-term committed relationship, otherwise known as a marriage. A marriage is an entirely different thing, is an entirely different kind of love, and it is generated and emanated from an entirely different part of your being than the romantic idealized love that we call romantic love. And that romantic love is better fitted towards something that we will call for the sake of conversation, a short-term or recreational relationship. Short-term recreational relationships have their place in life. They certainly do, and they are a healthy expression of what it is to be a human being. However, it is not a great basis for marriage, and so the two get very confounded and very confused together, especially since where you're getting your signals, where you're getting your learning, your conditioning, and your understanding of love, relationships, partnerships. Well, partnership is a whole nother category, and I may get to talking about partnership, but that is something above and beyond both romantic relationships, short-term romantic relationships, or long-term committed relationships. Partnership is yet another level that is available in long-term committed relationships. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will ever get there. It's just another available bonus level of relationship that most people never entertain or arrive at. So I don't generally talk about it in terms of love talk. It's not something that's generally available to most people. You have to first master long-term committed relationships. So let's talk about that first. The reason I talk about these things here on Love Talk is so that you can begin to generate some interest in your own relationships. And how can you, if you're watching this show, you're probably interested in having better relationships or having a relationship, or you may be interested in getting out of a relationship that's gone really bad, or some people are watching the show because they hope to fix a relationship which they feel is really good but that has some problems. So my point is that there wouldn't even be these shows, and so here's the premise that I want to speak with you about today. There is a profound presence that we, in some places it's called a soul or a spiritual essence. It's the center of your being. Some people refer to it as God or the infinite in you or in me. Some people refer to it as the Tao, the T-A-O, as in Taoism, in that spiritual realm. So there is something that we want to identify and begin to get in touch with that has always been there, that is watching from within you, and for the most part is effortless. You don't have to do anything to find it because it is who you are. It is closer to you than your own skin. And so you may have spent a lifetime searching it, and now I'm here to tell you that what you have been searching with, the one who's been searching, is exactly the thing that you've been searching for. So it's always been there, and there is a kind of love that is present there for all humanity, and that love can be extended. To say that it can be extended outward is not the truth, and yet it is a way of talking. That it can be extended outward is not the truth, simply because it is everywhere present all the time, and you are a part of it. You are an individualized, unique part of this expression of a kind of love that has always been there and always will be. And there is nothing for you to do to get in touch with that. But when I say there is nothing for you to do, I mean what there is to do is nothing. And you and I, as human beings, as thinking, logical, rational, achieving, competitive, egocentric human beings, feel that we must always be doing something. We have this mind, or at least we think we do, that is motivated to always compete, survive, be better than, be recognized as, be considered important, to express itself. In other words, it is a device designed by the identity, the true self, in order to defend us, in order to look out for us, in order to predict what is about to happen so as to keep us safe. And yet that is really its only function. That's really all it's there for. However, as you can see in the world today, that egocentric self, that self that believes that it is in charge of everything and that it must take charge of everything, that self that is proud when it succeeds and ashamed when it fails, that self that gets jealous when somebody else succeeds or has happiness, that self that would attempt to cheat somebody or diminish someone else or to steal from somebody else in order to claim success or in order to claim being better than or of higher value than another, that self is totally incapable of love. It has nothing to do with love. It is destructive to love, even though love is something that is indestructible and cannot be destroyed. The self can be so this little self can be so preoccupying, so fascinating, speak so loudly and so consistently and so persistently that in the world of humans that are all speaking through this egocentric self, it would appear that that is all there is. That's all there is. That there is only the world as created by, viewed by, and experienced by the outer egocentric self that was basically designed to protect and to preserve that innermost sanctified or sacred or eternal self. The funny part about this is that self has never needed defending. It cannot be attacked, it cannot be destroyed, and it never needs to be defended. And we're talking about the difference between a soulful love, an eternal love, a kind of love that is suited towards long-term committed relationships, as opposed to an idealized type of love, a love that is associated with romantic love being certainly juicier looking and more tempting. At the level of romantic love, human beings have developed their brains to about the level of fish. If you dangle the right kind of worm in front of it, it always will go for it, even though it just goes for it every time. And on the level of romantic love, men and women are like fish. You dangle something juicy in front of them and they just go for it. Even though they may have taken our classes, our courses, even though they may have read all of the books, maybe they've even been through a few bad experiences with romantic love, you dangle the right worm in front of them and they'll go for the worm every time. So, I say that jokingly, but it's very painful. It's very painful to watch what people do in the name of romantic love, not only to each other, but to their families. and to their loved ones. Marriages are destroyed, businesses are lost, homes that were happy become torn apart, and children who had two parents that lived together now are torn apart trying to decide which parent to go with, and they end up hating one parent and loving the other, or vice versa. So a lot of harm gets done in the name of romantic love, because human beings have developed their brains to about the level of fish when it comes to romantic love. So let's talk about that other kind of love for a moment. You see, romantic love is an idealization. It means that you're not really seeing the person or even loving the person. In fact, it is sort of antithetical to love in the sense that you are sort of ignoring certain aspects of the person in order to project onto them, like a movie projector projects onto a blank screen. You are projecting onto them your idealizations. In other words, standards that you have inherited that are not even your own. These standards did not come from you. They came from the outside world. Your ideals, your standards are not necessarily aligned with your own true values, your values, because you have never questioned what you truly value. You have been told what you value by your parents, by your culture, by your religion, by your schools, by television, by magazines, by fashion. You and I have been programmed and are being programmed consistently, persistently, and constantly each and every day in your environment, regardless of where you're watching this show from, regardless of whether you're in the Western Hemisphere or whether you're watching from Europe or the Mideast or the Far East. You are bombarded with a minimum. If you live in a world that has satellite television, you're being bombarded by a minimum of about 3,000 messages in advertising of some sort, most of them, almost all of them, interlaced with some sort of sexual, sensual, or romantic idealization concept in order to pique your interest and get you interested in buying that thing or investing in that whatever. So your idealization, or that part of you that projects an idealized version of reality upon the blank screen of reality, is being trained and developed to a very heightened extent, more so than at any time in history by any people in history, because of the ability of our media, our mass media, to bombard us with images, thoughts, ideas, and words, sounds, emotions constantly every day. Given that you're overwhelmed with the input of idealization, more than likely what you're able to do when you see somebody that you care about, see somebody that you're attracted to, see somebody that has got the right worm, right? When you reach for that worm, you're not even thinking of what that person is like over there. And you are, for the most part, ignoring their any flaws or character flaws or habits that they may have that may be antithetical or the opposite of what you're projecting. You just choose to ignore that. That's called hypnotism. As a hypnotherapist, I can tell you that all hypnotism is self-hypnotism. All hypnotism is self-hypnotism. You choose to imagine and project. You choose very often in the case of hypnotherapy, or in the case of the society that we're talking about, you choose to accept the suggestions and to focus out certain information, all the other things that are going on in the room or the environment, and to focus on something else. So you're focused on something to the exclusion of other data, particularly if that data happens to be conflicting. So you choose to focus on a given field of information. That's what hypnotism is. When you read a book, you're hypnotizing yourself because you're focusing out everything in the room so that you can read the book. Watching TV, driving your car, hopefully, having a great conversation with a friend, you are hypnotizing yourself. You are focusing on one specific area to the exclusion of other. So That's what you do when you project romantic love onto another human being and you focus out the things that you don't want to see. That's not love. That's hypnotism. That's going for the bait. And so now that we've sort of distinguished that, let's put that on the side for a second. That is what we're calling romantic love or idealized love. Now, I'll say something about this. All idealizations create ideologies. An ideology could be like a religion. Okay, it's something that you believe in. It's something that you will fight for. It's something that you can get up a lot of energy about. So an ideology is always from the mind. And because ideologies are always from the mind, not from the heart, they're from the mind. All ideologies are from the mind, and therefore no ideology could ever take you beyond the mind. Now, I'm talking specifically about any ideology that points to or positions itself as being the one and only or the ultimate or the way it is or the holder of truth. Any ideology, including the ideology of romantic love, is of the mind and therefore has no ability whatsoever to take you beyond the mind. They always run into a dead end whereby you are forced, if you are to go beyond the ideology or beyond the mind, the ideology will suggest to you that there is something beyond the mind that you can't see right now, but you will see later. Sound familiar? Something beyond the mind, something beyond the here and now, something that's not here right now, but it's there later. And you must make the leap in faith and believe it. So ideologies are of the mind. They cannot take you beyond the mind. Their only access to taking you beyond the mind is into the world of imagination, in which you imagine something that's never here right now. It's always somewhere else at another time, there and then, and you must believe it in order for this ideology to work. If you don't believe this leap in faith in the there and then you're not trying hard enough, or there's something wrong with you, or you won't be saved, or you're condemned to hell, or you don't love me anymore. You see? Or you say the love has died, or I don't have any passion anymore, or we used to have a romantic feeling that was all warm and fuzzy and tingly, and now it's gone. What's gone is that your ability to imagine something better than here and now, and to imagine that the there and then will be better than here and now, has been diminished. And when that is diminished, then this magical, mythical feel, a belief in something greater and better, something beyond the mind, dies away. And you're left in the present moment. Now, guess what? You've always been in the present moment. There's never been a time when you weren't in the present moment. Yes, you have flights of fantasy and you take your mind here, there, and the other, and everywhere, because your mind has the ability to imagine things that aren't here and now. That's how you've survived. Your mind has the ability to imagine what might happen next, what's likely to happen next, and in that anticipation, prepare for it so that you stay alive. Great, that's a good function. It's supposed to do that. Like I said earlier, the mind was created to protect the self, to protect the body, to protect the self. You are not your body, but you occupy a body, you have a body, but the true self really doesn't need protection. It's there before the body comes, it's there when the body's gone. The true self doesn't actually need protection, but as long as you're in a body, it's a good idea to be able to anticipate what's about to happen next and to either avoid it or to be ready for it, be prepared for it. That's what fear is. Fear is the anticipation of something that you're not yet ready for. When you're ready for something, then there's no fear. It's just that there's something going to happen and I'm going to deal with it when it comes here. Fear is the anticipation of something that you're not ready for, and it is a signal to the mind from the subconscious to get ready. That's all it is. It's just a signal to get ready. That's what fear is. That's why you get all of those adrenaline rushes and all those things that happen in your brain when you're fearful. Your heart stops beating fast because it is the body preparing itself to get ready for something. All of that is a part of the egocentric or the mind-oriented projection or idealization of love, and it is the love that we have come to know as being the true love. Whenever somebody speaks of true love, all of those movies, all of those poems, all of those songs, all of those experiences that you have had that have broken your heart, that you're suffering about, are all the disillusionment of the idealized love, the projected love that you and I have come to know and call true love. I'm here today to debunk that myth, and it's not that I don't think that true love exists. I do, and we're going to talk about that. True love does exist, and you have always been a part of it, and it is something that you will be in the presence of, or another way of saying that is be present to, when you're able to quiet your mind, stop projecting, and simply be in the present moment. True love exists in the present moment. And in the present moment, human beings are at various levels of self-realization, different levels of becoming who they truly are. Some people, if you will observe from the point of view of being a witness of your life, in other words, when you're able to calm your mind, able to let go of the tension that is created by idealization. Ideologies and idealization cause tension and anxiety in human beings. They cause tension and anxiety because the idealization is a projection of a you that you cannot be. It is a projection of something that you cannot be. And so your loyalty is torn between this you that can't quite ever be, this idealized you, and the you that you know that you are. So there's a sort of schizophrenic division in people's minds. People are fragmented in their personalities. There's the good me and the evil me. I mean, almost everybody that I talk to, I mean, it's even portrayed in cartoons by a little angel sitting on the shoulder and a little devil sitting on the other shoulder. I'm sure you've seen these illustrations in cartoons or stories. You know, people imagine there's a good me and a bad me. Well, there's this me that is the idealized, godlike, really good person that has honor, that has integrity, that is fun, that is wise, that is a good father or a good mother or a good sexual mate, or that's the pretty, handsome, intelligent, educated one that you project yourself to be. You project this onto society, and you say that's who you are, and you go about really trying to be that. And then there's the other one that you know that is incomplete, that's completely lost and clueless, that doesn't know anything about men or women and sex, that doesn't know anything about yourself, who has never even found out who you are yet, or why you're here, or what you're supposed to be doing with this magnificent thing called my life. Why was I born to this family? How did I get to be in this place and time? What is it that's happening right now that is of profound concern with me, and how am I a part of that? And what difference can I make in this world? And what is my unique gift? All of these questions most of you have never asked. And those are the kind of questions that would lead you back home, lead you back to yourself, to a place that you could call home, where no matter where you go, no matter who's there or who you're with, or whether you're completely alone in solitude, you will always be at home. You have the experience of being at home with yourself, knowing that your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your actions are congruent. They are at one with your true essence, your true self, who you really are, and to know that that could never be violated or harmed in any way, that it could never be crushed or even insulted, to just be at home with. And then even the idea of having courage is an idea of the mind. To others, they would say that you were courageous, or that you were brave, or that you were outstanding, but to yourself, it's just you being yourself and doing what you're doing and being true to yourself. It occurs to those who are afraid that you are courageous. It occurs for you, to yourself, that you're just being true to yourself, because that's all there is to do. So from this place of peace, from this place of self-knowing, from this calm, serene mind of self-knowing, it is effortless to recognize, to know from the inside out why you're here and what there is to do to make a difference. And you realize that every person, every situation, every circumstance are actually opportunities for you to express yourself more fully. Even those things that seem severely challenging, whether it be an illness or a relationship problem or the death of a loved one or the loss of income or any of those things that could occur as being threatening to the limited self, the idealized self. It may be a complete breakdown, the ultimate emergency, to the true self, to the serene self, to the self of self-knowledge. It's just what's happening. It's just what's happening, and there is a sense of, okay, this is an opportunity to explore something that, is neither here nor there. It's just what's happening now. And from that place of serenity, I would like you to imagine for yourself for the moment, because you can, that same mind that can imagine futures that are about to happen can also imagine a place of serenity, so clear, so calm, and so at one with oneself, that what is present, if you were to give it a word, could be called love. Love of oneself, an appreciation for oneself, not oneself like the little egocentric self that is so proud of itself. When we say to love yourself, I understand that many people hear incorrectly that we're saying to love the small, egocentric, idealized self. I am not suggesting that whatsoever, although you could love that too. But that is beside the point. The point that I'm saying when I'm saying love yourself, I'm saying that access to the self is love, the true self, the serene self, the eternal self, the one that has always been here. That self expresses itself through love. So the way out into the world is also the way into the self. The self is an expression of love, and by loving oneself, we're asking you to look in the window to your own home. It's as if you're on the outside looking in, and inside there's a warm fire, and outside there's a cold storm. And we're asking you to brush the frost off the window and to peer inside to see yourself and to get yourself invited in. That there is an integration that happens, that's possible between the true self, the inner self, the one that is serene, that is an expression of love, and that outer self that must live in the world. That outer self, go to that job, drive that car, raise those kids, run that company, balance that checkbook, do all those things that one is compelled to do as living in the world. We're not saying, the time where I can tell you, go live in a cave for 15 years until you get what I'm talking about, that's over. You don't need to even do that anymore. Humanity has evolved in spite of current appearances. It has evolved to a place where what used to take a lifetime is completely available and is possible to be gotten. I don't say understood. You can get something that you don't understand, and that's okay. You don't have to understand everything. In fact, understanding seems to get in the way of a lot of things. So I'm not talking about accumulating more knowledge and taking more notes and getting more notebooks of data and information about what works and doesn't work in relationships. I'm saying you don't need all that. I'm saying that there's a comprehension or an integration of the outer mind and the inner mind, the subconscious and the conscious, if you want to call it that, of the God-like part of yourself, which is often referred to as the soul, or the true self, or the inner mind. Whatever you want to call it, whatever words you want to use will probably work if it helps you to grasp what we're talking about here. But there is an integration of the interior and the exterior portions of yourself that happens through what the Zen Buddhists call right action. It happens through what you could call right action. Your actions are the bridge, if you will, between the inner mind and the outer mind. And there are many disciplines. There are many disciplines from ancient times that suggest that you must completely kill off the outer mind. That only when the outer mind is completely obliterated and there's nothing left of it will you ever find true peace and serenity. And that may or may not be true. I won't say that it is true, and I won't say that it isn't. I believe that it depends on the person and how and their unique capabilities, because ultimately there's no one but you. There's ultimately no one but you that will get what it means for you. I can share my truth with you, but that doesn't make it your truth. I can share what I've seen, what I've understand, and what I know. And so in sharing of my truth, it is not so that you become a follower of me. I want you to follow you. See, how I will know if I've been able to effectively share what I come to share is that you become more free. You become more independent. You become less divided and more unified in your thinking and your doing, so that what you think and feel and do in the world becomes from one source. You know, that the fragmented personality, the schizophrenic, crazy, divided up consciousness that most human beings are running around with and trying to manipulate their lives and the people in their lives so that they can feel more respected or more loved or more valuable, more prestigious, or be respected for their knowledge. That crazy running around trying to get value from the world by portraying some idealized version of yourself that you can never be, that creates tension and anxiety in your life. So that then the tension and anxiety become who you are. The tenseness in your body creates chemical reactions that end up being physical diseases. Dis-ease, the uneasiness or dis-ease of the anxiety and tension created by the division between your idealized self and the true self is killing you. So we have a caller coming in. Let's see what they have to say. Hello, this is Gregory. You're live on the air.
I have some questions.
Because your voice was going in and out, I'm going to repeat it a little bit for our other listeners. You were saying that the first time you meet a guy, it usually goes pretty well, but very quickly you become very attached to the guy. And so then you start calling him and saying, I love you and things like that. And then before very long, the guy kind of says, you're a nice girl and everything, but I can't marry you or be with you. Did I get that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. So what you're describing is on a light level is called oxytocin bonding, and we've talked about that a number of times here. You can look up oxytocin, O-C-Y, oxy, T-O-C-I-N. Oxytocin is a neural peptide or a chemical in your brain that causes you to bond with whoever gives you pleasure. For women, if a man gives you sexual pleasure, then you will have an oxytocin bonding with him. The same is true with babies, and so women have a great deal of oxytocin in their system and tend to bond with men more than men tend to bond with women. Just on a biochemical level, that is one explanation. So you have a tendency to bond with men very quickly. Another explanation of this is called addiction. You have an addictive personality. Now here's something that even if the men don't understand this, they instinctively know it. By instinctively, I mean it's on a subconscious level. We know things that we don't consciously know sometimes, not in our conscious mind. An addictable woman is not a trustworthy woman. And a woman that can be addicted easily is a woman who we know can be addicted to somebody else later on. If she can get addicted to me, like first time I ever see her, she's going to get addicted to somebody else sooner or later. She's not trustworthy. So what you're describing is that your addiction is even stronger when it pertains to blonde men and like that. So I got that, and it is, opposites attract.
That's hormones?
Well, opposites attract. So we're attracted to what's opposite of us. Are you dark-haired and dark-eyed?
Yes.
I got that, and you're I can tell by the other things that you're saying and how you're talking that you're also a very feminine woman. So a masculine man that is blonde or light-eyed will be your opposite, and so it would be normal to be attracted to that for you. So I'm going to catch you up very quickly. I've been talking about idealized love. What you are doing is projecting something onto somebody who could never be what you're projecting. They could never be that. And yet you are passionately projecting you're calling it love, but it's really a hormonal drive. It's an oxytocin rush. It's, by the way, the oxytocin is the second most addicting drug known to man. Do you want to know what the first one is? It's adrenaline. Adrenaline is what you get when you're afraid and you get the tingles. It gives you the fight or flight mechanism. Adrenaline is what makes your heart beat faster and your eyes narrow down and you get a big rush. Okay, so adrenaline and oxytocin together are a deadly combination. And so when you are looking for somebody who will give you that rush, you're like a drug addict trying to get a fix, of adrenaline and oxytocin so that you can project onto the, like you said, they're like a hamburger to a hungry person, so that you can project onto them something that has nothing whatsoever to do with love. Nothing. Absolutely zero. Nothing to do with love, which is okay. I think you should have as much of that as you want, except that you're an addict. So that's like telling a heroin addict you should go and have all the heroin you want until you're tired of it. And then when you're tired of it, maybe you'll stop if you're still alive. Well, it's nothing that I tell you is going to make any difference. There's not one thing that I could say to you in a few second conversation on television that would change your life and your behavior. Even if I told you exactly what to do, you wouldn't do it. So that's the reason we do workshops, because in a 2 or 3 day period, we can help you to see how things are going to turn out, and we can help you to actually transform your way of being in your life so that you see life differently. Remember earlier I said pain in your life is telling you that your perceptions are off and that your actions are off, right? One of two things, probably both. So in a workshop environment, you can actually be trained. You can actually transform your point of view and your actions so that when you come out of the workshop, you are a different person. Not that you just act differently or think differently. You're being somebody different in the world so that what you see for yourself and who you see yourself as being is a completely different person. That's what transformation is. Anything that I could tell you right now would be about changing your behavior, which is always superficial. Changing behavior doesn't work. Because it never sticks. It doesn't stay. So even if you did it once or twice, you'd go back to your old way of being, because it's who you are being that is incorrectly aligned with what it is that you really want. What you really want is you want to be loved and cherished and be considered valued as a woman by a man, by somebody opposite of you. You may or may not, because I don't know you well enough, want to care for him and take care of him and be somebody that he is loved by. But right now, all I hear from talking to you is that you're trying to get something for yourself from him. And he has something you want and you want to get it. And so all men are going to run away from that, always. They might have sex with you because it'll probably be good, but they won't. That's not what men marry. And if men marry women who are addictable, it's because they are an addictable man. You see, an addictable man or woman is not a committable man or woman. I'm going to say that again because that's a lot of words. Somebody who is able to be addicted is not somebody who is able to be committed. Commitment and addiction are adverse to each other. As commitment goes up, addiction goes down. As addiction goes up, commitment goes down. You can't be committed and addicted. At all points in your life, right now, every person watching this show, either right now, your addictions are running your life or your commitments are running your life. At every moment, every second of your life, you're either being run by your addictions or your commitments. They're adverse to each other. And I don't know, I've never met anyone that doesn't have some kind of an addiction, even if it's an addiction to coffee or tea or food. We're all addicted to something, and then some people are addicted to oxytocin rush. What I appreciate about you is that you're very honest. And I appreciate that. I want to acknowledge you for that. You asked me, how do men fall in love? And that is probably a bigger answer than I can give right now, but I can tell you that it has to do with communication, compatibility, chemistry. Chemistry is the sexual part, right? We say somebody has good chemistry. What it means is, when I look at you, smell you, feel you, I'm in your presence, my genes are telling me that you would make beautiful babies. That's what chemistry is, okay? That's what it is. You and me would make beautiful babies. Our genes are designed to tell us that, right? You make my genetic structure vibrate. That's what it's really, chemistry, right? Communication means that you're able to speak and communicate easily, verbally, non-verbally, that you understand each other, and it's not difficult and hard all the time. It's not like pulling teeth. You're able to easily communicate. You enjoy communicating, okay? And compatibility means that you and him, you don't have to change and he doesn't have to change. It means that you work together in a harmonious fashion towards a common goal without having to change yourself or be something else. Now, there may be geographical incompatibility. He may live in one place and you live in another. That can be fixed. But if you have to change, if he says, look, I really like you, but you're too skinny or you're too fat or, you know, your hair's not blondish, you should make it blonde like mine so I can like you better. You know, if you have to change to be loved by somebody, then run. That is not who you want to be with. Men choose a woman to marry because he gets a better deal with her than he can find out there. In other words, turning down all the other women for the rest of his life, I'm going to give you all my money, time, energy, sexuality, only to you for the rest of our life until we have kids and grow old together. That's a big commitment for a man. Men do it because it's a good deal. There are certain women, the women that come out of my wife's women-only workshops and who read the book Girl Talk and who listen to my 12 stages of romantic relationship CDs, those women have a clue about how to begin to direct their lives and the kind of women that men are looking for. Men are looking for women like that. Yeah. And then there's those other women that they're looking for in the meantime that they do want to have sex with, but comes a time in a man's life where he's had enough of that. He's woken up with enough strangers. He's had enough girls that he's had to say, you and I don't work together, and that's always painful for a man anyhow. And he starts looking for a woman that he could spend his life with. And learning to become that kind of woman isn't something you're going to do on a phone call. It takes a workshop. It's a practice. It's something that you practice and that you integrate in your life, and it changes you. Okay? I appreciate your call. Talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.